We all carry burdens. But asking for help with them is one of the most difficult things we can ever do. Most of us are too scared to ask for help because we believe asking might be perceived as a sign of weakness, or that no one else could possibly offer the support that we really needed. And it is therefore better to struggle on in silence. We are often too proud to admit that we need help, yet we will still resist the temptation to call for help, even if things get to the point of becoming completely unbearable. Carrying life's burdens can sometimes overwhelm us, and yet we still find it so difficult to ask for help. How many times have we found ourselves in a situation where we have so much weighing upon our shoulders that all we want to do is to let out a heart-wrenching cry for help and have someone take that burden from us? Having spent all night being interrogated, deprived of sleep, food and water, Jesus was brought before Pilate, only to hear the people shouting for the release of a criminal, Barabbas, and for Jesus' crucifixion. Within the space of 5 days, the crowd had gone from shouting Hosanna as Jesus entered Jerusalem to calling for his crucifixion. Having been flogged to the point of collapse, Jesus was then made to carry the very instrument of his own execution through the streets of Jerusalem to the place outside the city called the Skull, where he was to be crucified. Exhausted, bleeding, and taunted by the very crowds who only days before had welcomed him into the city with palm branches and shouts of Hosanna, Jesus made his way through the hostile crowds and crowded streets to the place where he would die. In this state of pain and despair and mental fatigue, the pressure for Jesus to cry out for help must have been overwhelming. To us, yes. But Jesus had already reached that point the previous evening as he prayed in the Garden of Gethsemane, when in a moment of earthly human anguish, he called out to his Father, "Abba, if you are willing to take this cup from me, yet not my will, but yours be done." The Roman soldiers had to make sure that Jesus was seen by all of Jerusalem to die on that cross, on that hill, and nothing had to be able to prevent that outcome. So perhaps because they could see that Jesus was struggling and might not even make it as far as the site of the crucifixion, They pulled Simon of Cyrene out from the crowd and forced him to carry Jesus' cross to the place of execution. We might ask, why was this man at this time compelled to help Jesus to get to the place that he was to be crucified? Was it purely coincidence? Or had God placed Simon in that place at that very moment so that the soldiers could make him carry Jesus' cross, and in doing so help fulfill the words of the prophecies that foretold Jesus' death on a cross? This small act of help, despite being an almost seemingly insignificant detail of the Holy Week story, proves to be one of the most significant moments. It allowed Jesus to get to the place of crucifixion, to be nailed to the cross, and to open his arms of love for us, and to die there, taking all of our sins with him to the grave, and to open the gate for us to come to our Father through him. Consider for a moment whether Simon knew or not that his help carrying Jesus' cross played a critical role in fulfilling God's purpose for Jesus, or whether he thought of it as an act of help he gave to ease the suffering of a man who, under severe duress, was soon to endure the most horrific of deaths. Perhaps it doesn't matter whether Simon knew or not. What is most important is that when called upon, he was able to bear some of Jesus' load and ease his suffering in that moment. An act of kindness undertaken because God had placed him in that place at that time. Just like Simon, are we aware of the moments when God places us in the right place at the right time, giving us the opportunity to help someone carry the weight of their cross? And in moments when we ourselves are overwhelmed with burden, are we too afraid or proud even to call out and ask God to provide a Simon for us? In the 8th of the posters in the porch, entitled Help, we read how God places Pastor George in Syria and gives him the opportunity to feed the hungry there. He responds by buying bread to share with as many people as he can. As we come to the foot of the cross today, let us give thanks to Jesus that he took away the burden of our sins as he hung on the cross. Let us ask Jesus to continue to take our burdens from us, and pray that God gives us the opportunity to be Simon to someone else's burden, and so share Jesus' sacrificial love for us all through our own actions. We all carry burdens, but asking for help with them is one of the most difficult things we can ever do.